Hello, Swifters. This is Angeleah. And we are going through a bit of a dry spell with the Swifty Squad. And there were some wonderful animorph works done today, which I kind of wanted to head up a little bit. But someone beat me to the punch. And that's fine. And the Hebrew thing, oh man, that was awesome. Good job. Well, I decided to talk about wild cards. Now, don't think I'm a traitor to the group or anything, but some of us are aware of Preston Jacobs, and he has his Thousand Worlds book club. And the whole fandom has a Song of Ice and Fire, if you're a book reader. But there are other George R. R. Martin works, particularly Wild Cards. He is the writer and editor of this book series. Since I've been following good old PJ's book club, I have gone on my own adventure of reading his other works and projects. I would probably say I'm about 70% there, but let's face it, math and time are very subjective things, and our new Donald Trump, George R. R. Martin, Game of Thrones, time zone, math issues that we have. I basically make my own reality now at this point. So I am sticking with 70%, and you can't say it's not because it's my own reality, okay? Anyways, so I'm going to give a brief overview, just kind of introduction to the series. It will not be spoiler free. I have a bad habit of my mouth running away from me. Probably the best example was when my car died a few years ago. My uncle has some mechanics at his business, and AAA came to get my car, and that they were aware of my uncle's business, and a recent employee had died by an unfortunate suicide, and I guess just to be sensitive to my family, I'll call him Joe. So when the mechanic or the AAA guy was like, "Oh, I know the place," I was like, "Oh, so you know Joe?" And he's like, "Oh, no." And then I was like, "Oh, I guess you wouldn't because he's dead." And my boyfriend was standing there this whole time and did not once intervene in this terrible mouth vomit. And I'm not sure if he's an asshole or not for this. He just has a tendency to stand back and watch the damage I inflict go on. But anyways, I'm like, "Yeah, oh, you wouldn't, Joe's dead." And the guy looks at me, and I'm like, he killed himself. And at that point, he was pretty quick for me to sign the paperwork and get moving. And yeah, that's just my word vomit. It comes with the territory. But tangents, need to get back on track. Some things about this is some books are in print. Some you may be able to find in a Kindle or other e-readers, but let's face it, only Kindle matters. It has to do with a publisher. There's 3 publishers of the series and all that crap. I just finished reading the 10th one, Double Solitaire, which was the biggest mindfuck of my life. There is rape. A lot of rape. But that's only the tip of the iceberg of the, well, I guess I should call it the mind rape, not a mind fuck. So basically what is happening is there's this alien planet species who is looking to test something, and it's a virus to use on their enemies, and oops a doopsie, it pops up on Earth. What happens to victims of this virus called the wild card virus? There's the death card, which means you instantly die. There are aces who get superpowers, and then there are jokers who are seriously deformed. Now, sometimes jokers come with things like extra strength and stuff, so sometimes I'm like, well, maybe they are an ace. And then there's Paragon, she has wings and talents, but nothing like mind reading or anything. And she even says that she's a Joker, not an ace. So in some ways that can be subjective. Like, a lot of it has to do with your definitions of beauty. What do you consider a superpower? All that good stuff. Now, there's a big class difference from regular society, which they call regular people nats, and a class difference between jokers and aces. And it seems like a lot of what you were doing at the time of the virus is what you become. Like, there's the Oddity, which was a threesome couple who is now doomed to be one whole body together. It's constantly switching. There's one guy who can get the memories of someone by eating their brains. And that really concerns me because that kind of means he was eating brains around the time the virus hit. Now, Dr. Tachyon, he's the alien and one of the main characters whose planet made this virus, will never actually confirm to the humans that what they were doing as part of it or any of their personality traits, because he feels like they might blame themselves. But in his little headcanon, he kind of hints that it is. One of my favorite things, one of my favorite characters, or at least his backstory, the Great and Powerful Turtle, and this is the guy that George R. R. Martin feels that he is most like, is that he can make things fly, but he didn't know for the longest time. Because when it hit, like, he had turtles that would levitate around him, and for the longest time, he thought turtles could fly. Until he went to school one day, and his friend was like, why are these turtles flying? And he's like, that's what turtles do. And that's when he gets mind blown, and he finds out that he's an ace, because he can make shit move. And I don't know how you can go that long without knowing that turtles don't fly. But that kind of, that's how he ended up taking his name of the Great and Powerful Turtles, because the turtles was his manifestation of realizing he had that power. But he's very self-conscious about it. So he hides behind this big kind of spaceship-y type shell thing, because he feels like he can only control it when he's hidden from everyone. And he even recognizes that it's a psychological inhibitant, but it's still not something he can get past. I started the next book, and I know from some of what Preston Jacob has said that the turtle does make a really hard decision. And I'm wondering if he's going to cause like a tidal wave or something. And I'm thinking that he may have to test his powers beyond that. But that's just a theory. We'll see. I'm on like page 60 right now in that book. Anyways, tangents. What other things do we need to know? A lot of the timeline meshes with our real world timeline. Like, the current president on the 11th book that I'm on is George Bush. Which, funny fact, George Bush Sr., there was a case of body switching, and people were aware of it, but someone switched bodies with George Bush, and the Secret Service was aware of that and they were going to shoot him. My thing was, that's still the president's body. If you shoot it, where the fuck is the president going to go after that? So, like, I really think that the Secret Service could have worked that through a little bit. But in the heat of the moment, what are you going to do? He switched body with, like, a 15-year-old girl. So wouldn't that be really crazy if, like, all of a sudden your president is now a 15-year-old girl because the Secret Service shot the real body? And then he'd have to deal with all those hormones and stuff, and just Jesus Christ. So this is a bioweapon. The planet that it comes from is called Takis. It's taken on Earth to test humans, because they're really genetically identical to the people on there. And Dr. Tachyon that I mentioned, he doesn't want this to happen. And he tries to stop the virus, but his attempt to stop it actually crashes the ship and thus releases the virus. So, good effort, but yeah. And like I said, the virus affects each person individually. Oh, here's another thing. I went to see Beauty and the Beast, like the musical, a few nights ago. And you know George R. R. Martin did a Beauty and the Beast thing. And I've seen every single one of those episodes. And you know how, like, in Beauty and the Beast, they become things that they were associated with, like pianos and stuff? I was like, oh my god, he worked on Beauty and the Beast. And Beauty and the Beast, they turn into things. And then Wild Cards, they turn into things that they do. And I was like, oh my god, I have this nice, perfect theory in my head. And then I realized Beauty and the Beast, the television series, was like from 87 to 89. And then the cartoon came out in 91. And so it doesn't mesh. Because as far as I'm aware, the original Beauty and the Beast stories don't have that enchanted castle thing. And his show was more about, it's kind of more like the hound, a furry hound person, living in an underground society that this woman discovers who's supposed to be the beauty, and he's supposed to be the beast. But that's the only real fairy tale aspect of it. So, the 90% of the people who could get killed, when I mentioned the Jokers, 9% of people become that. And then the aces that I mentioned, 1% develop that. So there's some good, awesome shit here. And one of the things that really impresses me is all these authors, like it's co-written by so many different authors. So I like to play like this big guessing game of which author wrote which character. Because it does tell you on the back. And for the longest time, like, I totally thought Dr. Tachyon was George R. R. Martin's. But it wasn't, Melinda Snodgrass. But, you know, it also makes you wonder what came first, the chicken or the egg. Because how much influence, as an editor, does he have on the writers? Because, like, Dr. Tachyon, he loses one of his hands. And that book came out about 91, I think. And George R. R. Martin started writing A Song of Ice and Fire in 96. And one of the big plot lines was Jaime lost his hand in A Storm of Swords, which was a few decades later. But it kind of makes you wonder, like, did Melinda Snodgrass get the idea from him, or did he get the idea from her? Or was it just a big coinky-dinky instance? I don't know. But it does make me wonder about that. And it's great. It's like Guess Who? And yeah, it's some good, fun, seriously fucked up shit that happens, but it has some good plot lines. So, if you want me to get into the first chapter, I would love to keep going. Just let me know. I will try to keep the spoilers to a minimum if it is something you're interested in. But I just gave away so much shit right now. I'm trying to think of something else. Oh, yeah, I don't play cards really, so a lot of the card references I don't really get. So, I'm sure there's a hidden meaning in that. So, if we get past any of the books at all, I might need some help on that. Or, can someone teach me how to play poker? That'd be a good skill to have. Okay. So, Wild Cards, it's a book done by many authors with a lot of storylines, and it's awesome. It's basically like a big superhero story, but it comes from an alien. The aliens gave us the powers. But unlike in a lot of comic books where it always helps the person, you have this effect where, it killed 90% of the people. And that's more realistic. Because, like, if you fall into a thing of acid or nuclear waste, you're going to have a bad time. I don't think you're going to get to be a superhero. And, that kind of falls on the realistic aspects of that. So there's some good times and some bad times in this world of superheroes and disfigured people, and it's a lot to get past. Anyways,